From acclaimed author Bertie Bloom, Riding Hyacinth takes us on a journey exploring the boundaries of love, lust, and the banking crisis.
She gripped the four posts of the bed with both hands and both feet. She never failed to impress me with her passion for spreadsheets.
Riding Hyacinth will leave you shook.
Prick me out, Kenneth. Now. Her nipples like thick biro caps.
Riding Hyacinth by Bertie Bloom. Get your copy today.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Yeah. It's the last class before summer, and teacher doesn't want to teach. He doesn't want to prepare lessons. He doesn't want to correct any exam papers, and we're just shooting from the hip on this one.
Because this is going to be a single take, we're going to do the whole episode in a single take. So this is going to be like what it sounds like if we never did any editing. If you came to a live taping of the best bits, God forbid, this is what it would sound like. So for better or worse, it's just going to be what we get in the next hour. Go out with a bang.
So yeah, roll the intro.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand, you warthog-faced buffoon.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What did you say?
You are a sad, strange little man.
Don't call me stupid.
Hello and welcome to The Best Bits, a movie podcast where each week we pick our favourite scenes and randomly selected from... Damn it!
Oh, for
From randomly selected weirdly specific themes. This is your co-host Will, a writer of 3 films plus a Christmas special. And I'm joined once again by our co-host and writer of 1 and a bit films and 3 and a bit episodes of TV, Kevin! Kevin, hello.
Back to 1. You fucked it up, back to 1.
Yeah, well, it's one take, so we just got to roll with it. Simple as that.
Just got to roll with
How are you?
I'm good. I'm knackered. I can't believe we're at the final episode, but not to panic. We'll be back once we take our summer holidays. And but yeah, it's been a long season. But, so we thought this would be a nice conceit to sort of like try and do this. See what we've learned over the last, what is it? It's like 4 or 5 months at this stage. And have we perfected?
We started recording in January. And now it's some other month in the future. I don't know when. And but yeah, it's weird that we've done a complete season, and it's fantastic, and I'm delighted. And yeah, as we already said, this is just a one-shot wonder. This is a episode about single takes or long takes, and we're going to do oners. We're doing that with this. So,
yeah, we didn't know what to call this episode because, like, it's got different terms, hasn't it? If you're in the industry, they just call them oners. But I think for the average layman, it's like a long take or a single take. No edits.
No edits, and then I suppose maybe I'm going to blur the lines a little bit with the stuff I talk about, because I think of something interesting I need to get off my chest, Kevin. There's something I discovered that I just I need to talk about that.
Okay. I can tell you already that I've changed my mind 2 or 3 times on what my pick is, and I think it's changing again. But I'm sure you will steer me as we go along, and I'll change it once more before I actually say what I was thinking. But let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. I went and kind of like selected only a handful of films because I knew we were going to do this in one take, so I didn't want to have a big BuzzFeed list, but I actually kind of have an honourable mention BuzzFeed list. And I suppose the way to start the conversation off, first of all, is, Kevin, maybe I'll do the chronological thing. Okay, the first really notable, like, big one take attempt was by, of course, Alfred Hitchcock back in 1948 with his adaptation of Patrick Hamilton's stage play Rope, which starred James Stewart and a bunch of other people. And a question, kind of like, I said, how do you frame these? What's a good question to ask when thinking about these one shots? And the question really is like, what does it add to the story? And I think that's really it. Why use it? Why is the filmmaker using it, and what is it adding? What is it adding to the film, really?
Suppose it's meant to be immersive, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. And in the case of Rope with Hitchcock, he knew he was adapting a stage play. And I found an interview with him, and he said that because it was a stage play, he wanted to basically bring the audience onto the stage floor and make the film move. Because a static image is two-dimensional, but when the image is moving, all of a sudden it becomes three-dimensional in our mind a little bit. So when we're moving through that environment, all of a sudden that space, we are the audience is in that space with these murderers, and he wanted to make the audience kind of a little bit of witnesses to the event,
because he would never.
So that's what he
would never change the structure of a play. If he was adapting it, he wouldn't sort of like adapt it for cinema. He would just shoot the play verbatim as it was performed on stage, because Hitchcock really believed in structure, and if the play worked, if you stick to the structure with a film, then the film will work. So that was his methodology for doing those sort of stage adaptations. So that was that would make sense then, that I suppose he was trying to bring us inside the play, but not change what the play was.
Yeah. But it's a tough thing to do, especially back then, because the cameras were, you had a little bit of track, but they were literally pulling out walls. They were pulling like the sets apart to try and have the camera flow across the set, and they were redressing it. So it was a big kind of like, magic exercise to pull it off. And also remember that, like, it wasn't, they only had 10 minutes of film in a can or in a reel or whatever it was.
I was trying to remember how many minutes it was, actually. So 10 minutes. So he'd have to hide those cuts.
Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah, there were several times where you would go and, like, go underneath, move the camera underneath the crate or behind a curtain or something like that. And in those moments, he was, that's when the cut would happen, and you'd reload the camera and start up again. So yeah, there was always, so they were limited. Doing these single takes weren't really kind of prolific back then, because you were limited by the technology. You were limited by the actual the amount of film you could film, but also the actual mobility of the rigs at the time as well. So it wasn't really a kind of a thing that was adopted by other filmmakers until the other major one was Orson Welles did it again, another kind of like master in 1958's Touch of Evil.
See, that was going to be the one that I was going to mention, because that's one where the whole film was sold to me on the spectacular opening shot of the bomb going off, the bomb being laid and stuff. And I thought, when you're thinking about single takes, you have to go back to 1958, like with Orson Welles, even though Kubrick did it the year before with Paths of Glory. But that one to me,
that's right.
Yeah, that one to me feels like it's a definitive one, where the film was sold on that amazing opening shot with Janet Leigh and oh God, what's his name?
Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston.
This would be edited out now in the actual episode, right? Forgetting the name of Charlton Heston. But no,
we're going to roll with our gaffes. This is just a gaff-filled episode, and another thing I found interesting, discovered interesting about that one is that by that stage, Orson Welles kind of was on the cusp of, he was pretty much being pushed out by the major studios. So he was on, like, because he had a reputation of going over budget and going over shooting days and all that sort of jazz. And when the production company had heard that he had spent 3 days doing, so it was, who was it? I can't remember who actually produced that. It was Universal, I'm pretty sure. When they'd heard that he spent 3 days like rehearsing one shot, they like flipped the lid. And they sent down people and all that sort of jazz. But then they actually discovered that he spent 3 days rehearsing a shot that would have cost him a ton of money to actually shoot and set up, and more time to actually shoot. So it was actually more economical, time-wise and budget-wise, to pull off this shot. And it's a really cool shot. It starts with this kind of mysterious figure, a timer being set for 3 minutes, and the timer being attached to a bomb, and it goes in the trunk of a kind of a white convertible. And the driver, the unaware driver, takes off in the car, and we follow that car as it kind of meanders through the streets, and then we peel off with Charlton Heston, who's kind of arm in arm with Janet Leigh, and this Janet Leigh,
whose arm was broken
basically
at that in that whole sequence.
Really?
That's why she's wearing the jacket that way. She had a broken arm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Useless trivia for you.
I love it. I love those sort of trivia. But it's cool. It's a cool suspense because the move itself really immerses you in the environment. That's what it does do. It brings you into the space of this world and the feel and texture of that world, and more than if you just had kind of static shots. And again, I think a common theme of this is like, the movement of the camera kind of draws an audience into the world, much more. And pretty much after 3 minutes, the thing blows, and it's a real kind of, it's a good scene. It's a great opening to a film,
it's a grabber. Bum bum.
It's a bum bum. But Kevin, before I go any further, do you want to reveal your pick now, or would you want to hold till later on?
So, when we do these episodes, we usually sort of go on a mad scramble to sort of cross-reference what's out there and go like, oh, I forgot about that one. Oh, yeah, I'm not really sure on that. But you sort of like do your mass Google-foo and sort of try and cross-reference what you're thinking with what's out there. And sometimes we try to come up with something which isn't what you could find online by Googling. And my pick, I think, as we just mentioned, Janet Leigh, I think that my pick is one that, well, it's not popped up anywhere else in any list that I've seen, but I'm going to mention it now on this podcast. And it's Janet Leigh's daughter. 20 years later, the opening to Halloween. They have a very long opening shot, which is from the point of view of the child. Michael Myers is a child, as he's sort of going through the house, stalking his sister as she's copying off with her boyfriend for the evening, which is over in about 60 seconds. So, the power of premature ejaculation. But they do the whole thing of like doing the musical chairs where they're moving lights and they're moving chairs out of the way, and they're scrambling to sort of relight the scene as they're using the Panaglide, which was the very early Steadicam. And they're sort of going through the whole house. Up the stairs, you get to see the first kill through the point of view of the kid wearing the mask, and then the big reveal at the end where you find out there was a child that pulled off that murder. And I've not seen that mentioned in any other list of like great long takes. And it's another grabber. It's another fantastic opening to a film. So Janet Leigh to Jamie Lee Curtis's debut. I thought that, just as you were saying it, I thought there's the cue. That's my pick for this category, Halloween.
That's a great pick, man. That's a great. I love the fact that you're picking something that's not, because as you said, I've done the research as well, and it's the same 15 films that kind of get mentioned over and over again, and rightly so. So it's kind of good to pick something that is a long single take, but doesn't. It's not a trophy shot, as you would call it.
No, because a lot of these directors that do them, they tend to do them a lot. So it's the same sort of names tend to pop up a lot. Like you mentioned, or I mentioned Paths of Glory with Kubrick, and he does it again with with The Shining, where Danny's sort of going down, cycling around the hotel on his little tricycle. And there are other directors, which I won't preempt what you're going to say, because I assume some of them are going to come up. But some directors really love the opening, or not the opening, the Steadicam sort of tracking shots that go on and on and on.
Well, this is a good segue now for me. This is a perfect segue, because I want to transport you now, Kevin, to back in time, right? You ready to come in my magic time travel box? All right, okay, just close your eyes. And you know where you are right now. Do
I need to put on
the
some
steps.
pants?
I assume right now we've gone through the season. I just assume that you're more comfortable pantsless, right? So I'm comfortable with you as commando as you are. Okay, so Kevin, so you stay commando, keep them loose, keep them free, and come with me back to 1975, right? And we're outside the Philadelphia Arts Museum. And
the Philadelphia what museum?
And there's a couple of people here. The Philadelphia Art Museum, right? The
Art
Museum.
I thought you said Arts Museum.
Okay. Well, there's that one too. It burns. There was someone lit a match just at the wrong time, and the thing exploded.
This is Skype. Every time we record, I'm listening to you on Skype, and I can never hear fully what you're saying. So I heard Philadelphia Arts Museum. Go on.
Well,
sorry.
You know, forget about the arses for one moment. And there's two people standing on these steps, right? There's two people standing here. There's a young lad, he's about 30 years of age, and his name is Garrett Brown, okay? And he's there with his girlfriend, and who will eventually become his wife. And Garrett is an inventor.
Mrs. Brown.
And he has...
Legend.
Yeah, Doc. He's also he's got a PhD, so Doc Brown. But Garrett is there with his girlfriend because he has sunk all his money into this kind of like invention that he's come up with, and he needs it to work. And if it doesn't work, he's basically completely, he's broke as it is, and he's going to be completely broke forever. So he's at the top of the steps. And he's going to try it, and he says, fuck it, I might actually break my neck doing this, but I got to do it. And he says to his girlfriend, he said, run down the steps. And she said, are you sure about this? And he goes, yeah, just run for it. If I fall, you just don't worry about me. You need to just keep running as fast as you can. So she starts running down the steps, and he takes off behind her. But he's got something unusual on his body. He's got this contraption, this harness contraption on his body that he's sunk all his money into. And he's got his small little, 8mm camera attached to this contraption. And it's heavy. It's still heavy. And he runs down the steps after her. And as she reaches the bottom of the steps, she turns around and she sees he's still with him, that he hasn't fallen over. And she gets this surge of energy, and she runs back up the steps again. And he's panting when he gets to the bottom, and he just goes, fuck it, I'm going to follow her. And he races back up the steps after her. So what he does, at the end of it, he was kind of exhilarated. He went, geez, I didn't die. You're brilliant. It's brilliant we're alive. But he took that camera away with him. And he got to the film development. Film developed, and he couldn't believe what he saw. It looked like the camera was floating down the steps and floating back up the steps. And he just went, "Holy shit! It works! It works!"
Is this the guy that invented the panic light?
This is Garrett Brown, who invented Steadicam. And
wow!
This is the guy, and this is the moment. So in 1975, he has shot this bit of footage. And it's worked, right? But he doesn't know what to do with it. And somehow he gets it in the hands of John Avildsen. And in 1976, John Avildsen shoots Sylvester Stallone running up those exact same steps using the fucking Steadicam.
Holy
Garrett
shit,
Brown.
I did not know that.
Yes. Yeah. So Garrett Brown, that's the moment Garrett Brown realizes, oh my God, this is fucking brilliant. This is a proper invention. This is going to revolutionize. So he kind of gets a few more gigs, and he creates this kind of like a conceptual kind of
prototype.
Trailer, running after prototype of footage, like running after his girlfriend through a meadow, and all different types of shots. And he gets it out to a few people, and it lands. He one day gets this letter back, mysterious letter in the post. And it's kind of a little bit mysterious. And it's from Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley Kubrick said, I have seen your test footage, and I believe it's going to revolutionize cinema as we know it. And he said, I am going to fully endorse this, and I'm going to get behind it in any way I can. And there's a little PS at the bottom. And he said, PS, there's 14 seconds, there's 14 frames in your footage where we can see the shadow of your machine. If you want to keep your patent, I advise you to trim that, because I'll be able to work out how does things work. This is a fact, right?
Wow.
And he calls him and he said, right. So Garrett Brown had made this thing. He says, what is the maximum height that you can operate a Steadicam at? And Garrett Brown says, well, he says, well, we can kind of go. He said, can you go low? And Garrett Brown said, yeah, we can go low. Of course, he hadn't tested the camera if we could go low or not. And then Garrett Brown went to his lab and he just went, I have to fucking make this thing go low, because he couldn't make it go low. And eventually he invented kind of a low hanging version of the Steadicam that would run at about, where a lens would run at about an inch from the ground.
Like a skateboard point of view.
Like pretty much, yeah, literally like 1 inch off the lens is 1 inch off the ground. And so what's Garrett Brown's specific invention? Garrett Brown is basically going to be the hero of this episode. He basically then attribute his invention became the kind of the linchpin for one of my kind of picks for this, which is the Shining, shots, and specifically the one of Danny going through the Overlook Hotel when he's
on his
pedaling
trike.
that big wheel on his trike, and it
always sounds
incredible.
Sometimes like we have scripted the episodes where we're setting each other up, and it's like, no, it's just, it naturally sort of just all sort of comes together. So it's funny that just mentioned that, and then it goes straight into what you were saying. That's amazing. I never knew any of that.
It's perfect. It's amazing. Oh man, this guy was really blew my mind. Discovering this guy Garrett Brown, because what I love about why okay, it raises the question to Steadicam, right? It basically opened up. The reason he did it was because he wanted to be a filmmaker himself, and all he had was he had a dolly, this big, horrible, ugly dolly, and he couldn't move it around it, and he was sticking his small camera on it. He just went, "It's so stupid." He said, "Why?" And his dad was an inventor actually. And he was a folk singer and all this sort of stuff.
Did you ever see the, in The Exorcist, where they do that sort of, you think it's a Steadicam shot where they're going up the stairs, of the house to the bedroom, and the camera is what you think like Steadicamming up behind them. But what they had to do, because it hadn't been invented yet, they had like the cameraman sitting on like a swing. And you had all these winches, and the people were like winching him up the stairs in order to be able to track up the stairs after, I think it was Ellen Burstyn, without having any tracks on the steps. So the things that they had to do in order to replicate something which hadn't been invented yet. And that was was it 1972, I think, The Exorcist was, or 74. So, that must have been like a godsend to people, that Steadicam.
You're absolutely right, because any handheld shots were just shaky and bouncy. No matter what you did, they were shaky and bouncy. There was no stabilization going on. Like we in our brain, when we look at the world, we have natural stabilizers in our own heads. That, like, if you nod your head up and down, you're still going to see a stabilized vision of the world. But a camera doesn't work that way. So you have to create this artificial, device, which he managed to do, and it really did revolutionize, moving how a camera can move through a scene. And all of a sudden, we have an explosion of single take shots. We have the ability for more fluid shots and more interesting shots, which can move through a scene. And going back to the Shining one, what I love about that Shining one is the sense, first of all, the sense of the floating sense, right? So there's a sense of being a ghost, right? So you're kind of floating through this environment, which is really cool. But also, it manages to create a sense of drawing you into that space by being Danny's your avatar in that big wheel. When he's cycling along, the sound of his wheels as it goes from boards to carpet is kind of hypnotic, isn't it? And when you're going around the corners with him, there's, it's almost like you're driving with him in a way. You're kind of like, you can see him oversteer at one moment, and you're kind of wanting to say, "Oh, that's cool." You can actually feel the propulsion of it.
Yeah,
but
it's really transportive.
Drama. It's transported. So you're kind of enjoying the momentum with him as he's enjoying the momentum. But when he turns that corner, and ahead of him is the two girls. Actually, Garrett Brown. The two girls, and it was Garrett Brown who shot that. Garrett Brown shot that, and he said
really?
When he came around the corner, because a lot of people think that the cinematographers or the guys are doing all this sort of stuff, but it's the Steadicam operators are specific, like SWAT team guys that come in for Steadicam days.
We had a Steadicam operator on Grabbers, and it's amazing that they'll come in, they'll take over those specific shots. So a lot of the stuff that was outside the bar, with the ray machine going, and they're chasing people towards the police jeep and stuff, that was all the Steadicam operator.
And he would come in just for those shots, and he's specifically trained to use the Steadicam. You can't just pick up a camera and think you can use the Steadicam. There's a whole technique. It's like playing an instrument. But yeah, what Garrett Brown said when he turned the corner and he saw those two twins, standing there, his hairs literally stood on his arms. He literally was freaked out by it himself in the moment, because he was with the kid as well, watching the kid through these viewfinders. So. Yeah. It's an amazing... I love that long take. That's one of those takes that I actually do think is fantastic. And they employ it throughout the film, like, chasing Danny when Danny's been chased by, Jack Nicholson and stuff like that. It's damn cool.
Yeah, because, like, Steadicam sort of lends itself to those long takes. Because it's like De Palma, obviously, has an amazing one at the start of Snake Eyes. Well, he's got loads of them throughout his career, but at the start of Snake Eyes, even though there are some hidden cuts in that, where they pan across like TV monitors and what have you, but the scale of that, where you've got thousands and thousands of extras who, imagine sort of doing a run through of that, and you've got to get all the timings right, and people sort of coming up to you and saying their lines, and you're moving from one setup to the next setup and sort of keeping it all flowing. If you make any mistakes, having to go right back to one and start again. But I think it's like a 12-minute take at the start of Snake Eyes, and the film itself, the film is the film. But that opening is like, when you think about doing a long take with a Steadicam shot, that is got to be up there with like Atonement for like the massive scale of it, and the sort of the technical. What's the word? It's so sort of like jaw-dropping to watch.
I found a really interesting interview with the Steadicam operator of Atonement, and a bunch of stuff. Like his name is Peter Robertson, and he gave a really interesting insight into the function and like the purpose of like using Steadicam in film. And he talks about, he would basically say, like, first of all, you have to go through a whole school of Steadicam operation. But he said when he's been proposed, when he's been asked by a director and cinematographer, to employ a Steadicam or use a Steadicam in a scene, he can book back and question, saying, well, why is this benefiting the story? Why do this in as one shot? And in the case of Atonement, and that was going to be one of the ones I have to mention, because even though I'm not like, a huge fan of Atonement, I really admire it. And I really admire the long Steadicam shot in that.
It's more impressive to me than 1917, which is an entire movie that sort of like employs long takes and Steadicam.
Yeah,
that whole
absolutely.
Opening in Atonement, I think it's unreal.
And the reason, do you know why they did that in the Steadicam? Now, first of all, it's a nice stylistic thing. But in actual fact, like in the case of Orson Welles, it actually was cheaper. It actually turned, if they were to shoot that scene, like with locked off shots, the extras would have increased, the sets they would have to build would increase. But instead,
were they
by
reusing extras then? Were they sort of like farming people from one section to the next section, depending on where they were pointing the camera? Was that sort of how it was cheaper?
No, not that. I think it was they literally had to build less. They literally kind of, because they were going to create the same effect. Yeah, keep by having the point of view very, very specific. They were able to focus in on a much more isolated area, and rather than kind of like to create the same sense of immersion, if you know what I mean. So it was kind of like a cheat, but it was an incredibly long one. Like, he walked, that trek for him was over a quarter of a mile. And the feat of actually pulling off the one in Shining, it's set, I'm sure everyone knows, it's like set after Dunkirk, and everything's gone to crap, and you've got soldiers wounded coming on the beach and all this sort of stuff, and we're following James McAvoy as he's coming up the beach, and basically, to actually pull the shot off, Peter Robinson, the camera operator, said, I physically can't do this. I physically, they're heavy rigs to hold, and he said, I can't go, and he had to climb up sand.
Quarter of a
mile. What it's like.
Wow, fucking hell.
Yeah, but how they did it was they used different contraptions. So he would, for the sand, they had him on this like rickshaw thing. So he would like step onto the rickshaw, and they'd pull him up right to the kind of like the far, as far up the sand they could. Then he would get off the rickshaw and he would like trudge up the sand. You know how it is to climb sand on your own. Not a mind carrying a big piece of equipment like that. And then
Yeah.
he would get onto the embankment where he goes and he does this. He kind of circles the soldiers who are singing, the Welsh soldiers who are singing that beautiful piece of music, and he walks around them, and then he gets onto another electric car, and he gets pulled along as James McAvoy's been pulled along, walking along it, like, you know, behind him, we'll say, or behind him, and he gets off that. So there's all these transfers of his, like, it was. He said he actually.
I love those
they
behind
did
the
it basically
scenes
10
footages,
times.
tapes where they show you sort of the dance that goes on in order to sort of to pull off everything that they need in shot at that specific time, and sort of the transfer of jumping from one, you know, rig to the next rig and handing the camera over or stepping onto things and stepping off things. It's always so like incredible. It's like Cirque du Soleil stuff.
Yeah, that's an amazing one. It really is. Just behind this, the execution of that is so impressive. And I was just, I have such an appreciation for that craft and that ability. And again, the reason for doing it, was one, I suppose, stylistically is quite nice. And he said he brought it. Peter Robson said it himself. He said some directors just see these shots as trophy shots, as in, just to kind of like be stylish just for the sake of being stylish, rather than adding something to the story, And in the case of The Shining, Kubrick employed it really well. Like, he drew us in, he kind of used it to kind of draw us into the world from the point of view of Danny. And it was really effective when, something really abnormal and terrifying emerged in the world. But I think that one was really, I really like the Atonement one. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's great. The one that I was also going to mention as like a backup to, if it wasn't going to be Halloween that you tipped me off on, I was going to mention like Children of Men, because Alfonso Cuarón has a lot of, he does a lot of sort of long takes as well. Gravity, he's got the famous opening where it's all one take. But the one in the car where Julianne Moore, spoilers, if you've not seen it, it's 2006, so I think people have seen it, where Julianne Moore gets killed. And the long take takes place in the actual car. And if you've ever seen how they've done that, it's remarkable. It's sort of like chairs will fold back and Julianne Moore will go flat and she'll be pulled out to the side, and the whole roof will open up, and as the camera turns back around, Julianne Moore will slide back in on this little track and extend her seat upright again. So you think that, it's like a trick shot as well as being like a long extended unedited take. It's a really spectacular shot. So that was going to be like my backup one, but I don't know where your head was at with.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love that one. Like, what you're describing there is like, it's that movie magic stuff, isn't it? It's the stuff where you go, it's like, Jesus, the execution of the trick is so impressive that you will watch the behind the scene making.
I think it's on YouTube.
You
can look it up if anyone sort of is curious to see it. But just Google sort of how they did that shot, and it'll show you this sort of like the orchestration that was involved. It's amazing.
And in the middle of that, Alfonso Cuarón, I think it took them 12 days to kind of get that done. And they finally almost got the shot they wanted. But when a significant character is shot, blood splattered off her squib and hit the lens. And Cuarón just went, screw it. Alfonso Cuarón shouted, cut, like, it takes one. And the director of photography or the people just ignored him, and they just kept rolling. And as a result, it ended up making the scene even more visceral and even more impactful, like,
Yeah, it's been copied so many times now where they do sort of like the CGI blood on the screen. But it's
completely accidental.
Brilliant. I love that.
It's completely accidental. Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. It's an amazing film. And
I dropped my phone, and no, we can't edit that out.
I love it. I'm just hoping you didn't drop it into a glass of water.
I made a list of like ones where I thought like, just in case we skip over anything. But we never we never prep these episodes. We never know what the other person is going to say, so it's always like you're always sort of wondering, do I jump in here, or is this going to sort of tread on their toes for later on? So the minute I said Children of Men, I thought, shit, maybe that's Will's pick, and I've just sort of fucked him over now.
No, it's not. I was glad you brought it up because I was looking at my list and I went, geez, I forgot to add it on my list. I was like, I'm so glad you brought it up, Kevin.
I'll mention another one
but
because I know that you won't bring this one up because I don't think you've seen it yet. But I mentioned on the Alan Smithy episode, The Vast of Night from 2019, and that has so many long extended takes. And those ones are particularly impressive because it shows off the actors and how skilled they are at sort of just running and running and running with this dialogue that it's so dense and so specific, and the language that they're using, and it immediately just brings you into the world where you don't feel like you're watching a film. You're sort of like transported right into that location and you're with those characters. But The Vast of Night from 2019 has got a great one. And another one, because we mentioned Halloween.
Man. Go on.
But because Halloween was sort of famous for having that opening extended one-take shot, they tried to do one similar in the 2018 version. So they have that really long extended take where Michael Myers turns up on Halloween night and he sort of goes on a murder spree, sort of stalking around the Haddonfield borough, just killing everybody. And I think they shot that as well over the course of a few nights, and they did like 60 takes. So these things, like when they pull them off and you see them in a film, you just go with it, but you don't realise how long it takes to sort of like perfect them and to get them right. So there must be, can you imagine? You're on like take 35 and you're thinking, shit, do we keep going? Have we got it? Because you can't hide it. Maybe we can get it right on the next one. Nope. Take 42. Oh, fuck, man. This is never going to work. We're going to have to cut it from the schedule. So that's the confidence of a director and a production where they're like, no, we're doing this. We're going to get it right. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then we see the version which is like the one that has the fewest mistakes in it. But they're I love they're pure cinema because it's like it's all about the whole team working as one to sort of bring off this amazing sort of moment that you don't realise in most cases that it's all happened in front of you in one take.
Yeah, just like this podcast. It's all like, this is literally just evolving. It's just one take.
No mistakes.
And it's really lovely. But you lead me on to another. So I'm trying to go through my honourable mentions. There's no rhyme or reason, but basically I'm following the flow of conversation. And one that popped into my head that only became possible again was due to the evolution of technology, and it was from 2002, I believe, and it's a film Russian Ark, right? So made by Alexander Surikov, and it was basically before the early 2000s. It really wouldn't have been possible because of film stock. Because as we already mentioned with Alfred Hitchcock, you could only shoot for 10 minutes, and they would have to do imaginary cuts. But but what we had in the early 2000s was the evolution of digital cameras, and as a result, they were able to go for almost not an infinite take, but they could basically shoot for 100 minutes before the memory of the camera would be full. And that's a fact. So they knew they had 100 minutes, right? And what Russian Ark is basically a film that's set in a museum in can't remember actually what museum it is, but it's you follow a ghost as he takes you through this museum, which basically flows through 300 years of Russian history, and it is amazing. It is amazing.
Wow, that does sound amazing.
Live in one take. It's beautiful. It's like watching Barry Lyndon, a one-take Barry Lyndon almost going where you have people like they were big ballroom scenes, and there's lots of music, and it's very simple, but it's beautiful and breathtaking to behold. And you were talking about mistakes, and the one thing they did because it's set in this museum, they only had 3 days to actually set up the shots. Because the museum was an open and active museum, so literally they closed the museum and the entire team had to come in and set the whole place up for one night of shooting, and they had to build the sets and wire the lights and wire everything and have the costumes all ready and have I think it was something like 2,000 extras. 2,000 extras.
Wow.
Yeah. had to come together to make all of these set pieces work. Like, we're talking big. It's not like a small, intimate, like 2 people in a room sort of stuff. It's
like
big
a flash mob.
ballroom period. Oh, it's amazing. It really is. Just to watch it as an execution, it's amazing. But the one trick that they had to pull off. Go on.
Keep going, because I was gonna mention. Keep going, and then I start talking. No, in Hard Boiled, the hospital sequence where they go into the elevator, and you think as you're watching it, or I think as I'm watching it, that the elevator's gone up a level. But because there's a big shootout that happens, they go into the elevator, they're arguing with each other, they're loading up, the doors open, and it's obviously a different level, and they start firing and shooting up there. But it's not. It's the same. It's a stage. So as the doors close, all the crew run in and they start pulling out walls and swapping, moving in furniture to make it look like the elevator's landed on a different floor. So it's that stuff. There was an amazing Spike Jonze commercial that I can't remember the name of it now. But if you look up Spike Jonze sort of one take commercials, all the trick shots that they do, like the Weezer music videos, all the sort of the Rube I can't even say it. The Rube Goldberg machine type thing that they do. All those sort of like all done in one. It's that sort of stuff on a film set. But so you're saying Russian Ark has that on a spectacularly huge scale.
I know. There's another thing I want to say about Russian Ark. The elevator thing in Hard Boiled. The elevator doors were only closed for 20 seconds. So the crew had 20 seconds to clean up the set. It was amazing. I would say it would have been easier to just build a lift and build a second floor and build a second set. I don't know why they didn't do that.
It reminds me of that
20
moment,
seconds and they did it.
It reminds me of that moment in Poltergeist where the mother is sort of just chatting to the kid over the breakfast, I think, as everyone has gone to school and gone to work. And the camera just stays on her as she goes and takes something out of a drawer, and she looks back, and suddenly all the chairs in the kitchen are stood on the table. And it's another thing of like just in the 3 seconds it took for the camera to pan across and then pan back, like 16 crew members just ran in and meticulously sort of like built the chairs on top of the... Oh no, I think all the chairs were stuck together. So they just all ran in and just put the chair on top of the table, but everyone else had to remove the chairs that were there.
Brilliant.
So if you were to hear the actual sound, it's like, go! And it's like feet scrambling and doors slamming and move. And I love that stuff.
And
that's
the effect of that
of a film set.
The effect of that is far more effective than a simple cut and a simple turnaround cut. That was because it's one continuous shot. The impact of that it's terrifying. Because
you're immediately going, how did they do that?
Yeah, and also from an audience point of view, you're in there going, I was over here. I was just there with her. I was just over there. We went to the thing and we turned around. There was no cut and it happened. You almost kind of feel like a ghost they did actually capture. That's how you can, I think that's how ghost films, how you can really pull off ghost stuff is by actually pulling that trickery off in camera without cuts and all that sort of stuff. And actually, I think that's when it's really, really effective.
Definitely.
My point about the Russian Ark was that the only trickery they pulled with Russian Ark is that they didn't record the sound live. And the reason they didn't record the sound live was because the director was swearing so much and there was so much chaos. They were literally shouting at each other, "You go over here, shut the fuck up, you get over there." He was literally screaming at everyone. So they basically ADR'd or did all the post sound and post, but everything else is shot like in the floor.
David Fincher does that as well though. Like he's got one in Panic Room. But, he ADRs all of his films at this point. He does everything in post-production and he stabilizes the camera. He does all these sort of like little tricks that people don't realize are being done. But yeah, he doesn't believe in... Well, I shouldn't say things as factual statements when I'm just sort of passing off hearsay. But I think he prefers to do all of the dialogue in post to ADR it, essentially. Because he prefers the sound quality. But he's a perfectionist, so... Yeah, Panic Room's got one. But
that was one I was going to mention as well. There's another one I wanted...
Can I...
Yeah.
Go. Well, we mentioned Protector, didn't we, in the fight scenes episode?
Yes,
which is
we did.
one long
Yeah.
Steadicam shot, which is a great one to watch.
And Kevin, I learned in researching this, I learned that they fired the first 3 Steadicam operators because they couldn't keep up with the action. They literally were exhausted. They got on the third one. The third one they hired was the guy who could keep up with the pace of that. So that's
The
that was
speed
one
of Tony
on my
Jaa.
long list. Yeah, it's amazing. That's an amazing one. I was going to mention The Player by Robert Altman's The Player,
Yeah.
which opens with a long take, and the meta thing for this episode is that in it, one of the characters actually talks about Orson Welles' Touch of Evil opening with that's a 7-minute long take, or 5 minutes. I don't know. It's a long one, you know.
But you know
And
what? I
it's
read on that when I was looking it up. Someone said, or someone wrote that all the dialogue in that opening was ad-libbed. So people were just ad-libbing moments.
I learned that too. Yeah, completely improvised dialogue. But the most important thing about that is that we're flowing through. Again, it's the movement going through this backlot scenario where you get to feel the artifice of how nice and beautiful and California and sunny it all is. But as you get closer into the meetings and to
Those horrible pitches.
Tim Robbins, the horrible pitches, and then
Graduate
the
2.
lovely... The Graduate too. And like he's literally pitching. Is that the one where he can pitch any headline from a newspaper and turn it into a movie? Who needs writers? That's basically what it is. And there's a poor writer in with him trying to pitch to him. That was the one that broke my heart. This writer, okay, I've got this. And he's like just pitching his heart out, like, you know, for all these different, you know, and the exec is Timmy Robbins is just literally just going, yeah, whatever.
Can I tell you, just as an aside, that when I was an intern in LA, I used to have to sit in on meetings. Right. I think just as work experience, and I'm not going to say where, but it's a producer that won an Academy Award, and they were having writers come in to pitch on a rewrite, and the producer would throw out these terrible suggestions. And, you know, I was sitting there over the course of like 3 or 4 days watching all these different writers come in, and they don't know who you are. Obviously, they're looking around the room for sort of friendly eyes, and I am, you know, pretending to to be an ally in the room when really I had no power whatsoever. I was there to get water and get coffee and what have you. But the producer would throw out terrible ideas and just to see how they'd respond to the suggestion that he was making. And afterwards, people, you know, there'd be some of them that would say, that's a great idea, we could do this, we could do that. And then there'd be others that would say, I'm not sure about that, because what we could do instead... But no matter what they said, and this was a scary thing for me, you know, when I started to write myself, was that if they agreed with him, he thought they had no spine, and if they disagreed with him, he thought that they were too intractable in their beliefs, and they would be difficult to work with. So it was a lose-lose scenario, and I thought, why is he playing these fucking mind games with people? But The Player was a very good satirical take on that.
Close to home. Yeah. But you know what the satisfying thing about that opening shot of The Player?
Well, we'll cut all that out.
Well, with the satisfying thing about The Player is that when we get to the very end of that final shot, you're on a kind of a close up through the window, and Tim Robbins' character has got a postcard in his hand, and it's a death threat, or, you know, a kind of a death threat, and you go, it ends with intrigue. It's not just a kind of a moving shot for the sake of a moving, or like a long take for the sake of long. It draws you into the world, and it ends with a point of like, you know, there's a death threat is afoot. And again, it's just, it's intriguing. It's intriguing. And it's like, they're great ways of like us bringing you into an environment, introducing you to this kind of space, you know, and it's really, really cool. There's other ones. Oh yeah, well of course we have to talk about Paul Thomas Anderson and Boogie Nights. Yeah. Of course, that's one that has to be mentioned.
Which one in Boogie Nights do you like? Because there are two really brilliant ones in Boogie Nights.
The second one.
The second one, yeah. See, I was going to say the second one as well, but that opening as well.
Yeah.
With that great music, and you're just sort of like following Roller Girl, and you're meeting all the cast. What a audacious way to open a movie. I love it.
Yeah, and the second one then is basically we're at a party and the party's really fun, but we start following William H. Macy's character, who's a cuckold's husband. And it's a New Year's party. I can't quite remember right now, but everything's going fun. And he opens the door of a bedroom and he finds his wife, having sex. And he doesn't react. He just turns around and he walks out to the car.
Isn't she a real porn star as well, or she was a porn star? I'm pretty sure she was an actual porn star.
Quite possibly, I don't know. But but how that again? That's just it was an amazing one because
I wouldn't know.
Brain,
well, I never watched porn.
You just make it.
Cut that. That's what the reviews. That's what the review said. Yeah,
but that's really
great,
affecting.
Great
what's really
Steadicam long take.
Yeah, it's when we follow him out and he gets a gun, goes in and emotionlessly, shoots them both. And it really shatters this, the space of this party. You feel like you're at that's the effect.
The
with
whole
these
movie
Steadicam
takes
shots,
a turn.
You feel like you're in the space. The whole thing kind of pivots at that moment, So I think that's the one that really stood out to me from that film.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Kubrick, De Palma, Cuarón.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Orson Welles.
Orson Welles.
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
I think there's one. Because we sort of we're very much like Hollywood junkies. We love all the Western cinema. Tarkovsky obviously had some great ones. Godard did as well.
One.
In The Weekend.
Yeah.
But
Tarkovsky's in the Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are amazing as well, just for it feels like you're seeing money actually literally being burned on camera, and you wonder, if they don't get that right, they're going to have to, and they did in some instances, have to sort of rebuild the actual barn or the house or what have you, and set fire to it again. But I think there's
incredible.
one. It is. I think there's one name that we haven't mentioned.
Yes, and that's going to be my best bit. Yeah, we're coming to it, and it's my best bit, right? And it's got to be the Copacabana shot in Goodfellas, and that is my best bit. And I have got things to say because I learned stuff about this that just opened my eyes, and I was like going, "Wow, that's fascinating."
I know one little thing about it, but I remember that shot being shown to us in college as sort of like an amazing Steadicam moment. And it still holds up. 1990, you'd think that Goodfellas was like mid to late 90s, but 1990, it's such a timeless film.
And it's only a short 7 years later, Paul Thomas Anderson is homaging him in Boogie Nights with the same type of shot. Definitely. And of course, it's everyone knows it's the shot where Henry Hill has taken his wife, Karen, played by Lorraine Blanco. Is that right?
Lorraine Blanco, the therapist from Sopranos.
He's taken her on her first proper date because their first date was a disaster, and he truly wants to try and win her over, and he basically he goes into the hottest nightclub, the Copacabana, not through the front door, but down through the basement and in through he tips everyone along the way and in through the kitchen where he knows all the staff, and he emerges on the main floor where the show is in full swing, and he tips another guy, and the other guy, clicks his fingers, and a waiter comes forward with a table with the tablecloth just floating off it like a cape, and places it right up the front, right in front of the comedian, and the comedian winks and nods to Henry Hill, and Lorraine Blanco at that moment sits beside him, and she says, "What do you do again?" And you know that she's in love. And of course the soundtrack is amazing at that moment as well. And it is an utterly amazing shot. It really is. But what are the things you want to say about that?
Well, I don't know if you know it you probably know it as well, but once it gets pointed out to you, it kind of fucks with your head a little bit. So every time I rewatch Goodfellas, and it is one of the most rewatchable films ever, but now every time I watch that shot, after being told that they go, the way that they come in is also the way that they go out. In the as they walk into the kitchen, that they actually just do a 360 and they come right back to the same door. That when you watch it now, you're thinking what the fuck are they doing? Like, they could have just kept going straight, but no, they go in, they go left, they go right, they go right, they go right, they go right, they go left. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But you're
And that
so
all
sort of caught up
happened.
by all the sort of like the chaos of the kitchen and all that's going on, and all the sort of like asides where he's showing off by tipping people and what have you. You don't notice it on a first watch.
You don't. And I loved the genesis of this, because this shot wasn't intended to go that way. The reason they went and did this was because they actually weren't allowed shoot going through the main door of the Coco Cabana. So they actually had to go down that way. Yeah, this is what happened. So they had to go. They had to figure out. Says, well, what way do we go in? And they said, well, he's going to, because in the book it just kind of like glosses over it and says, yeah, we greased a lot of pans and yada. In the script, there's about 1 page dedicated to it. But then the actual execution of it was not the cinematographer. The cinematographer was the one who said, oh, Marty, we have to go into the kitchen. We have to, because all they were going to do was just go down the bottom and walk straight through that corridor and go straight onto the main floor. But it was the cinematographer who came in and he just went, look at the kitchen, look at the light. We have to come into the light. And so what they did was he was so right. But then, so that's the cinematographer. And, the cinematographer was great. But the cinematographer isn't the guy who actually pulled it off. The people who pulled it off were Larry McConkey, the Steadicam operator, and Ray Liotta. They were the ones who choreographed it, because he was the one who had to everything. It's not Scorsese. It's not even the cinematographer. It's Larry McConkey, a name you'll probably never knew it was attached to Goodfellas. He was the guy who basically figured out, okay, I'm on the Steadicam. Ray, when you go down the stairs, I need you to slow up when you go down the stairs. And Ray Liotta had the idea. He says, well, if we put a guy at the door downstairs, I can just kind of like grease his palm. And so that's why he greases so many palms. It's so the Steadicam cam operator can catch up to him. Or
this
there's
is why
a moment
cinema
when
is a collaborative art form, because it's,
there you go,
it's
man.
everybody working in concert, and some of the best ideas are by the people whose names will never get remembered. Or brought up. But yeah, it's such a great moment.
Listen to this. What's amazing about it is that even when they go in through the corridor and they see a couple kissing, the reason that happened was because Larry McConkey says to Ray Liotta, he says, Ray, I gotta see your face. What can we do so you can turn to me? And he says, well, Ray Liotta says, if there's a couple here making out, maybe I'll turn around and I can engage with them. And so when they went into the kitchen, they had to make it look, because they were just effectively going to do a lap at the kitchen and come out the same door. But what they did is when they went into the kitchen, the set decorators were behind them, and they changed the kind of like dressing on the doorway, so it made it look like it was a different doorway. And they come out onto the floor, and they basically, it is in the script. And what happened was they recorded this, like they did a rehearsal of it, and they showed it to Scorsese. And Scorsese and Larry McConkey thought, oh, this is all shoe leather. This is going to get fucking chopped. And he kind of had his head in his hands thinking, oh, look, that's that job wasted. So Scorsese watches it and it finishes, and Scorsese goes, no. And Larry McConkey's going, oh God, I'm fired. And Scorsese says, no, at the end, the waiter's got to come in with the table and hold it right over his head and walk across the floor like it's gliding, because that happened to me. I was a guy who was at the front of the stage, and they came in and it was just Goodfellas put tables in front of me, and before I knew it, I was at the back of the stage. He used to think he could have seats at the front. Other than that, he was perfect. And they shot that 9 times, right? They shot it 9 times, and they got it. Ray Liotta and Larry McConkey got it right every time. But do you know why they had to redo it 9 times? The reason being was because, I'll tell you, the reason being is because, remember, there's a stand-up guy on the stage that they go to, and he says, take my wife, please. No, take her, or whatever he says. Yeah. He kept fluffing his lines. Fluffing his lines. They had to redo the whole thing because of him, and they couldn't digitally screw it up. Larry McConkey and Goodfellas, that's the guy. Not Scorsese, Larry McConkey. That's the guy.
There we go.
But also,
that's
I want to give
hour.
That's 1 hour done. But hey, I also want to champion. I also want to champion Gareth Brown, the inventor of the Steadicam, who Gareth Brown went on to revolutionize. Doc Brown. He revolutionized how we watch sports today, because he is. If you watch any sporting match, do you know those Sky cameras over a football match. He invented those. He invented a camera that goes down with divers at the Olympics. He basically invented a camera for each sport in the Olympics. Any professional sport, Garrett Brown invented. Yeah, he was an amazing dude, and he shot physically. He was the guy who shot in Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, the going through Endor, the speeder chase scene in Endor. Never seen it, but you should see it. It's Star Wars, right? You should check it out. It's really interesting. Might be up your alley. But there's an Endor speeder chase scene.
I'll make
that's
it.
That's all Steadicam. That was Gareth Brown. There was he did.
That wasn't Gareth Brown. That was all rear projection. Don't lie to me though. That was. They weren't.
No.
They weren't actually, on another speeder bike going at like 150 miles an hour through the woods.
When they were doing the going through the woods, he was the one carrying the bloody camera going through the woods.
Okay.
And he was there on Temple of Doom. He was on the rope bridge on Temple of Doom with his steady camera.
Oh
my
God!
Yeah,
you couldn't have paid me to have walked out on that bridge. Forget it.
He said he had to run across it, and he said it was to excuse the pun, it was ropey.
Actually, in this economy, you probably could pay me to do
it. A fascinating guy. But Kevin, yes, that is over an hour of us unedited chat about one take shots.
Did we do okay?
Well done, Larry
for
McConkey.
Our final episode. I thought that was alright. Usually this would get chopped down to and he'd come out with a 40-minute episode. But this is it's the end of season 1, isn't it? Or is it?
It's the end of season 1. What do you mean? I thought we were burning the wheel. I thought the wheel was going to be put in the closet, and that was it.
It turns out we don't need the wheel for the end of this episode because, God. You can tell them, Will. What have we got?
Because our now new friends at the wonderful, fun film podcast Clash of the Titles have reached out to us and challenged us to come up with an episode based on a topic that they have selected. So I think it's just the easiest thing to play that clip and let them speak for themselves.
Hello, Kevin and Will. Chris, Vicky and Alex here from Clash of the Titles. Big fans of the show and truly honoured that you are dropping the best bit spinning wheel for 1 week and allowing us to choose your category. After hours of discussion and debate, we've decided on Best Robot Scene. But team, what should that include? Alex, do cyborgs, androids, synthetics and replicants all count?
Yes, I'm going to say yes. I think, let's throw a lot into the mix here. I mean, I want Bishop from Aliens to be considered. I want Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner as an option. So, yeah, the replicant there, synthetic there. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Vicky, as someone who won't use home tech and isn't a fan of Alexa, does AI count?
No, because I don't know what that means.
Okay, AI does count. You mentioned a couple of specific scenes you'd like to see.
I absolutely want one of the most terrifying robots in cinema history for me, based on the fact that I watched it when I was quite young, but it's so scary, the scene, and it's such a scary robot, and I want some discussion about Ed 209. In the original RoboCop.
And you know what? They've already mentioned talk of Ed 209 in their practical effects episode, but we want more RoboCop and more Ed 209. Vicky.
I really think we should talk about Short Circuit too.
Obviously.
When Johnny Five gets smashed to bits. Because when you asked me this, that's just where my mind went straight away, and then I nearly started crying. So I would like to see... I've buried that, actually. I'd only just remembered that scene.
Why not if we're doing AI, which it sounds like we are, including...
It's not us doing it.
I'm not us doing it. Do Demon Seed.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I can't believe you said that.
I went there.
But speaking of horrible things, the guys have already spoken about Superman 3 robot that scared the proverbial out of me on their questionable scenes for kids episode. So the only one I'd want to add to the list is the shit robot from the start of Rocky 4.
Oh, yeah.
So we've picked a lot of shit here. So obviously, guys, feel free to ignore these suggestions as it's your podcast rather than ours. But thanks again for letting us choose the category and good luck picking your best robot scene.
So there we have it. We are being dragged back by the good people of Clash of the Titles, Chris, Alex and Vicky, for one more round. Just when we thought we were done and too old for this shit, they pull us back in. And why specifically did they pick robot scene, Kevin?
Because they're doing as next week's episode, they're doing Terminator versus Terminator 2. Now, I don't know how you possibly pick which is the better of those two films, but they've tasked us with coming up with the best robot scene. So, you know, we've got cyborgs, synthezoids, droids, replicants. We've got friendly droids, we've got friendly robots, evil robots. We've got a lot of choice there. So we're gonna tackle that. So that'll be our final episode. Thanks to Clash of the Titles, which, you know, is definitely worth subscribing to. So yeah, we're back next week for our actual final episode, which will be best robot scene, and then we're off for the summer holidays.
Kevin, I've literally just burned my film encyclopedias. They're literally, you can see the bonfire is happening out the back right now. I've pulled the fire alarm in the house, you know, in our temple, and I don't want to be called at the principal's office. Oh God, this is going to be awkward when I have to come back in. But it's great. I'm delighted. It's so this is so exciting, you know, to be doing this, with them, and I can't wait to hear what they say about Terminator and Terminator 2, because how do you separate them?
I'm afraid that I would have to go with Terminator for that, just because it was the first one, and I think that always what comes first should come out on top, regardless of whether it gets perfected later on. That's just my personal preference. Even though I probably like Terminator 2 more, but in that scenario, I would go with Terminator.
I'm going Terminator 2. Sorry, it's amazing. I have to leave it with that. Okay.
So next week we'll be back for episode 17, the end of season 1, best robot scene. Yeah. So we'll see you then. And
don't forget to do all our...
forgot all that.
Follow us on...
you can cut
Where,
this in
Kevin?
Later. Like, subscribe,
Kevin.
share, email us, follow me, Kevin Lee Han on Twitter.
Willem's Film, Twitter, Best Bits Pod, email bestbitspod at gmail.com.
5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars.
Yeah. 5 stars. That's the only way to go. And thanks so much for listening. And we'll say our proper, goodbye, for the season next week. But great. I'm looking forward to it. A proper edited, not just a one take, one hit wonder, properly edited show next week. Cool.
Okay, back to one. We got to do this whole episode again.
Did I fluff my line at the very end? God damn it. I fluffed the last bit. Just like that goddamn comedian in Goodfellas. God damn it.
The Best Bits podcast is produced by Will and Kevin.
All audio clips and music heard in this episode is the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff.
If you have any notes, comments, scene suggestions, or just want to get in touch with us, email us at bestbitspodcast@gmail.com.
And here is a clip from the lads' latest Mini Bits bonus show. The full episode, plus 80 more, are available on their Patreon.
See ya, Mossy. I gotta go in and record another one of these fucking Mini Bits.
Oh, yes, this is all it.
I know. What are you doing?
Right now, on the Academy screener site, and I hit play, because there's only a few films on it for the first month or two. There's only like about less than 10 films on it. And Guy Ritchie's The Covenant is on here. So I hit play on that, and I'm hearing we're out in Afghanistan, and I'm hearing all the dirt, and I hear vehicles, and I hear the sound effects of characters walking. But when characters open their mouths, I don't hear any dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
there's no dialogue.
They've uploaded the wrong audio track. It's like that Tom Cruise trailer where it was just the sound effects.
Have you met an SP?
Yeah, and this film's been up on the screen site for a few weeks now, and they still have the wrong one here. Well, I tell you what films are actually up there for all Academy members to see, and they see what they've put up there.
But first of all, let's just throw to our theme. And I have to say, the feedback from my thank you ballad was quite fierce.
The power of Christ compels you.
So I asked Mossy, who is a friend of my dad's at the quiz, Sing us a theme tune.
Oh.
So, over to Mossy.
Hit the cards. I'm fine, I'll get it done in one take. It's the Many Bits. Or podcast, what will they say? With Will and Kevin Cock.
The best fucking podcast.
That'll do.
That'll do.
My God.
Thank you, Mossy.
You would make an angel weep. That voice would make an angel weep.
Telling you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Boolabus.
It only cost us 2 months patron money, so, you know.
Is that all? Money well spent in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get much for €20. Will, you were telling me before the intro that you were looking at stuff on the Academy Screeners website.
The Academy Awards. So for official members, yes. So they don't send out DVDs anymore. So how you do all your streaming stuff is all via the Academy website. And the streaming season has begun, which is exciting. So it means for the rest of the year...
Did it ever end?
It does end. It does. After the Academy Awards, there's about 2 weeks, and they take all the films down, and then they begin again at the end of August, and they all start coming up. So it's a whole new collection of hopefuls.
So how many films are on there?
Right now, about 10. Actually, 10 exactly. I can tell you the 10.
Oh, go on, tell me.
John Wick 4.
For the Oscars. Oh, because there's like...
Yes, they're adding in stunt category, aren't they?
Are they adding it in? Is the stunt category being added?
I believe they're adding in some sort of stunt category.
Breaking news straight from an Academy member's mouth.
Because they're adding in stunt category, aren't they?
Slash film.
I don't know. Did I read this in an article? I feel they were.
I
felt they were.
Have long overlooked stunts, and my God, it's pure artistry.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly, well, these days, it's all fucking rubber computer generated avatars.
That's why we should that's why these people should be getting their Oscars when someone's actually gone out there. Yeah,
go back,
absolutely.
Go back and give it to your man from Mad Max who broke his legs.
Give it to Richard Farnsworth, who was a stuntman and starred in The Straight Story. Yeah, Richard Farnsworth was a career stuntman. Absolutely.
Wasn't that also the case with Machete? What's your man, Machete? Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo.
Is
really?
It Trejo or Trejo?
I always call him Trejo. He just says, call me Danny.
I was going to say that back to you.
Nah.
Was he? Just
weird.
Because we just call him